Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this launch presentation of the National School Dog Alliance. My name is Dr. Helen Lewis. I'm an Associate Professor of Education in Swansea University, and I'm also really privileged to be the Chair of the National School Dog Alliance. In the session today, what we're hoping to do is talk to you a little bit about why we feel school dogs matter. We'll also exemplify that by hearing colleagues from different schools. Sally Lees, they're going to be sharing some of their experiences and talking to you about why they feel there's a need for an alliance. We'll then talk about the alliance in a little bit more detail. We'll explore what we aim to do, why we think that's so important, and crucially, how you, if you're interested, can also get involved in our work. And then we'll finish with closing remarks from our ambassador, Dr. Mark Abraham, who is the co-founder and secretariat of the All-Party Parliamentary Dog Advisory Welfare Group, which is going to be really important to our work as we move forward. So let's begin just by introducing you to the colleagues who make up this alliance at the moment. We're a really small group and we've been working together for 3 or 4 years to get to this point because through conversations and networking, we discovered that there were a number of us who were feeling the same about school dogs. We think that they can play a really important role, but increasingly we're aware that schools are often taking steps to bring dogs in with little or no support or guidance available to them. And that's one of the key things that we hope to address. The members of the group come from a whole variety of different backgrounds. We're truly interdisciplinary. So we have teachers and teaching assistants working across the sectors and across the country. We also have representatives from organisations such as Dogs for Good, Kids Around Dogs, and from training organisations such as Therapy Dogs UK. Together with academic researchers, we hope that we can really bring some key messages about what good, safe and effective practice looks like when we bring a dog into school. We're also really lucky to have 3 ambassadors supporting our work. 2 of those ambassadors are from the world of animal-assisted play therapy. So Dr. Risa Van Fleet and Tracy Farr Thompson, who are so inspirational and so knowledgeable about how to make sure that the welfare of any animals involved in these kind of interactions and relationships is really safeguarded. We're delighted to have them on board with us. And our 3rd ambassador is Dr. Mark Abraham, who we'll hear from later in the conversation. So I'd also like to say welcome to all of you who are listening today and joining us, whether that's in person in Ysgol Plas Crug, where we have a room full of colleagues, or whether that's online and perhaps you're catching up with us later. Firstly, it's really fascinating to see the range of people who decided to come today, from people who have nothing to do with dogs actually in schools at the moment, but who are interested in the potential and who own a dog themselves, through teachers, student teachers, educational project managers, but we also have canine-related professionals, researchers, policymakers, and of course, the team from the National School Dog Alliance themselves. There's also evidence of the international appeal that dogs in schools have. If we have a little look at the map on this slide, you'll see that people who've registered for this event come from across the globe. So we have representatives from the African continent, the North American continent, all across Europe, and really excitingly from countries such as Hong Kong, Australia and New Zealand. You're all so welcome, and it's wonderful to see the sense of interest that this work could have across the globe. And I'm also hoping that in time, those communities and those discussions can be had internationally, because I think we can learn so much from one another. So we're thinking about the National School Dog Alliance. This is a screenshot of our new website. And really what we're trying to get across, and what I hope comes through today through all our conversations, is the fact that what we're aiming for are interactions and relationships that take place in schools and other educational settings that actually create opportunities for happy and healthy connections between people and between dogs. And by that, we mean that the dogs are gaining something from these experiences, as well as the children and the teachers and the other stakeholders that we may meet in school. So we'll take you through the website in a little bit more detail later. But first of all, I'd like to start just by talking about why we think there is something so special. Well, I actually think about dogs in general, not just about school dogs. And I think this is about relationships. I think what we know from research into dogs who come into schools is that they bring something special in terms of the relationships that they can build with different children and in different contexts. And those relationships are enduring. They've been present for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they can take many different forms. But what we do know is how valuable they can be if we match the right dog to the right child and we support them through working in the right context. And that's really our strapline for the National School Dog Alliance, thinking about those relationships and how we can get them right. So we talked to thousands of teachers. I'm sure that within the audience today, we owe thanks to people who contributed to some of our surveys. But we asked teachers, you're busy people, why would you add an extra dimension to the challenges of your daily life by bringing in a dog? That's going to make things more complicated and busier. You're going to have to be thinking about the dog as well as the children. What's the benefit of this type of activity? And actually, it was very interesting because what we began to see was that there were certain themes emerging. I'm really pleased that that sense of happiness and joy came through. There was recognition that bringing an animal into the classroom and allowing children those opportunities to work with them and spend time with them could make people happy. And that extended beyond just the children. So I think that was a really positive thing that we saw. We also saw the fact that there was recognition of this bond that dogs can form with people. This idea that for some dogs, they're so sensitive to humans and human body language that actually when they see somebody who is feeling distressed or upset, they're able to recognize that and they are able to respond appropriately. Many of our teachers felt that they were seeing those kinds of relationships. We also heard evidence that having the dog in school improved children's motivation, their persistence, in some cases, even their attendance. But the key driver, the key thing that we heard about was how dogs can improve children and young people's well-being. That was by far and away the most common reason that schools mentioned bringing a dog into their classrooms. I think it was also really positive to recognise the fact that teachers were responding to say, look, not all dogs are the same, not all children are the same, different dogs appeal to different children. So we have some dogs who are very calm and like nothing more than to relax and lie down, listen to some reading. We have other dogs who are much more keen to engage in playful behaviour with children and some kind of active interactions. And teachers were commenting that they recognised that and they were thinking about ways that they could match the different dogs with the different activities that took place. And this work is actually mirrored and matched by research that exists already. There's a growing body of research out there about the benefits of human-animal interactions. But I think we need to look at this cautiously. So, for example, this first point here talks about how there are biological, psychological, and social impacts when we bring dogs into classroom contexts. That's really true, but that impact could be negative. So there are some children for whom knowing that there's a dog in school might cause great anxiety. It might cause an allergic reaction. There may be cultural or religious reasons that would make a child feel uncomfortable. So yes, there is an impact. And yes, for many, many children, that's going to be positive. but we must caveat that with an awareness that not all children will want to interact. Not all teachers will enjoy spending time with dogs, and indeed, and importantly, not all dogs will enjoy coming into a school context. We'll return to that later in the presentation. But we also know that there are many benefits for social, oracy, communication, many benefits across the curriculum. And the presence of an animal can also be a really calming influence and actually change the nature of the learning environment that's available to children. So many reasons why this seems like a great idea. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sally now, who's come to us from Gloucestershire in England today, where she works in Cheltenham Bourneside School. She's going to talk to you a little bit about her work with her dogs and how she has established good practice and models of effectiveness within her work, and also a little bit about why she feels that the National School Dog Alliance will be so valuable moving forward. So a very warm welcome, Sally. Thank you for travelling down today, and it's great to see you and to have Lottie and Olive and their sibling Murphy with us today. Thank you.
I'm really excited to be part of the launch of the National School Dog Alliance, and I can see the huge benefit that this is going to bring to us as teaching professionals who are exploring the use of animal assisted interventions. I was really lucky that our new head teacher in September 2020 allowed me to bring my elderly Labrador at the time, who was a qualified PAT dog, into school as part of the response to the COVID pandemic. We very quickly saw the impact that having Molly in school was having on pupils, with the increased anxiety, the change and the strange approach to education that we suddenly had with having pupils in bubbles. Molly was a beautifully calm and responsive Labrador who seemed to be in tune with the needs of the pupils. But sadly, I knew that the inevitable was going to happen and that I couldn't be without a Labrador in my life, and actually then school couldn't be either. So with the support of the school, the senior leadership team and the governors, we embarked on getting a puppy to join us and to continue the legacy that we had started with Molly. Now, as I started researching the challenge of bringing a puppy into school, I realised that within this country there was little information. Everything I could see was based in the United States, and there was no regulation, there was no guidance, there seemed to be no help out there at all for us doing an animal assisted intervention. I knew that some other schools were doing this. I spoke with them, I got sight of their risk assessments, but there was no uniformity, there was no regulation, and it was nerve-wracking embarking on this, because I've grown up with dogs all my life, and knowing the importance of training, of ensuring that the sort of stresses within the early puppy years, just like with children, what happens in their formative years shapes the puppy or the child that they're going to become. And I knew that I couldn't get this wrong, but I felt very alone, but I wanted to do this. So Lottie joined us at 8 weeks old in July 2021, and we were able to embark on the training with a good citizen guidebook through the Kennel Club. This was a pathway that enabled us to train Lottie to become a calm, well-mannered, well-behaved dog, and being part of school, it became her second home. As a senior leader of this large secondary school and safeguarding lead, I'm often here beyond hours, long when others have gone. And I probably spend more time at school than I do in my own house at times, so this was her second home. And very quickly she became used to routines, her space, but it was important that the welfare of the dog was at the heart of everything I did, and there's no point having her in school if she is unhappy or stressed. I am lucky enough to have a welfare area in the school where my team works, and I have my own separate office. So Lottie was able to have two bases where she could exit to when she wanted to, if she wanted time out. These are quiet spaces with no children, no through traffic, and staff that she knows as her key members of staff and handlers. I've had to mimic the beds, the provisions in all of these bases, and additionally when she was growing up we actually had 2 other bases where there were quiet zones for her. That enabled me to pull on staff who could help me out when I had the challenges of teaching or attending an emergency meeting. Lottie's welfare was always at the forefront of everything I was doing, and I have to be honest, that comes with its own stresses and strains in a busy day. And you know, for us as senior leaders and educators, we've got the day job to do, and we are actually making the decision to bring a dog into school and manage that as well, and that's hard. And there is, until this point, no support out there. So that's why the Alliance for me is an exciting and well needed provision and support structure that is going to sort of hopefully grow and develop in the UK very quickly. I completed the Gold Award of the Kennel Club Good Citizen Award, and Lottie is thriving. I work with primary schools as part of my job. We developed a risk assessment, and we have gone out to primary schools. She is very much the face of Bourneside at times. Pupils know her, it helps them to transition to the school. She gets her paws into everything. We've created a social media presence for her, and it's actually written in Lottie's voice. So it's talking about well-being, mental health, approaches to life that we would like all young people to have, but it's said from Lottie's voice, not from us boring adults. It is very much photos of her doing things and encouraging that approach to life that we would like. The social media has allowed us to connect with other schools and to learn from them, and for them to come and see what we do as well. The impact is immeasurable, both on pupils. She works mainly in our welfare area. We do one-to-one dog walks, so as part of our provision, rather than sitting in a little stuffy meeting room with an adult, the children can choose to have that meeting and that chat around the school site. We've got a designated walking area, we've got park benches along the way, and through those one-to-one walks we've even had safeguarding disclosures and where children have felt safe to say how they're feeling. And I think the impact is immeasurable when it comes to boys as well. My team are female, all of a certain age, and you know, to engage young men in their teen years to trust and feel comfortable, actually what has enabled that to happen is Lottie. Because we've walked with a dog, if it's with me, I may take the dog off the lead, we chuck the ball around, and it just relaxes them and enables them to feel safe, and they then trust us and tell them what they're thinking and feeling. She also gets involved in the life of the school. She's often out at break times, lunch times, we walk around. The one rule we have in school is you never touch the dog before talking to the human that is with it. And that way, as I always say to the children, I wouldn't come up and sort of ruffle your hair without you knowing. I would talk to you first of all, and I definitely wouldn't ruffle your hair anyway. But we don't do that to a dog either. We respect each other's space. In the mornings, we're out on duty, we're welcoming people to the school, good morning to everyone. But what I've found is the children who are maybe those who are quite quiet, who just come in, they get on with the school day and they go home again, they're the ones that want to stop and talk. And then they start telling you about their dogs and what they've done at the weekend. And the relationships we have through the medium of Lottie is significant, and it is about trust. Parents engage significantly with the dog as well. Lottie's known everywhere, and you know, sometimes if a parent is upset, we work with them and sort of say, do you want to come in and just sit down for a moment, have a cup of tea, have a cuddle with the dog? It really does help to suppress those anxieties and emotions. And again, it's about staff. Beyond hours, when there's no children here and maybe I'm still here, Lottie does walk alongside me in the corridors without a lead. She has cuddles with staff along the way, and she really does bring a smile to everyone's face. So much so that we, as a very large academy, saw the need for developing this provision. And through the work that I have learnt through Therapy Dogs Training UK, who I worked with in March. We had the temperament assessment for Lottie, and she was awarded her therapy dog status through them. They have been a fantastic support to us. They've enabled me to feel confident about the animal assisted interventions I'm doing, and they have brought me in contact with the National School Dog Alliance as well. With this and the sense of confidence increasing and the support structures around us, and now a knowledge of risk assessment, insurance, public liability, what to do, but always making sure the dog's welfare is at the heart of things, we embarked on another special part of our journey. Lottie is special. She is an amazing Labrador, and I saw the potential. So in the summer, Lottie became a mum, and I was so lucky to have 7 puppies. And of those 7 puppies, we've identified 3 of them that are now embarking on their school dog journey with the aim of emulating their mum's credentials and becoming qualified therapy dogs through Therapy Dog Training UK. It's a hard journey. There are days when it is extremely challenging because I've got a job to do and I've got a puppy to train and raise. I do not have the luxury like assistance dogs and guide dogs where the puppy goes off for 18 months with a puppy walker and is trained and then comes back and is given to me as a handler. I'm doing all of that whilst keeping the day job going as well. And that comes with its own challenges. But at the heart of this is making sure that Lottie and now Olive are happy, they're not stressed, and they are gaining from everything that we do. They're part of our Bourneside family. This is their second home, and we're at the start of the journey with Olive. She joined at 8 weeks old, and that was the beginning of October, and she's just turned 4 months old. And she's already getting into the routines. We've had some teething problems where she didn't want to walk on a lead in a corridor. She didn't want to walk at all. She wanted to be carried. But the pupils have been so respectful. They've been kind. They know the potential that's coming, and that everybody has welcomed Olive into the school community. Everybody knows to ignore Olive and to ignore Lottie and to speak to the human first and to allow us that space to train and to get used to the school environment. She is settling in, it is taking time, and it's a challenge as well having the 2 dogs in. But I know the long-term goal that I'm aiming for. Working closely with the other 2 puppies and their handlers, head teacher at a primary school and the manager at a preschool in Cornwall, we are learning from each other. We're sharing the pitfalls, we're sharing the good days as well, and making sure that our training is consistent, and we hope that we're going to be successful in achieving 3 of Lottie's puppies becoming therapy dogs. I think to summarise, the National School Dog Alliance brings together something that I would have just wanted so much back in 2020, some guidance, some help, some advice about the legalities, making sure that we're safe, but ultimately looking out for the welfare of the dog. The success in our school has been as a team. There is no way that you can do an animal assisted intervention by having a school dog in school all the time if you're doing it on your own. It has to be agreed by everybody, and you also still have to have a team wrapped around you. There are times when, through my job, I have to be somewhere, and therefore I can pull on my team, who are all trained up as well, to be working with the dogs. I'd say Lottie and Olive are so happy in my welfare area with my team as they are in the office quiet with me as well. They adore my team. They know the route in the morning, go into the welfare as we come round the front of school, and they're excited to go in there. They've got their little routines, and you can see the dogs are happy, and that for me is critical. You cannot do this if you are doing it alone. That will not ensure the best welfare for the dog. So when embarking on this journey, talk to other people, make sure your head teacher, your senior leadership team, your governors are on board. Make sure that everybody understands the expectations. The one thing that would unpick all of my training is a member of staff who ignores what I expect and just wants to cuddle the dog because that's what you do with a friend's Labrador. Long term, these dogs are going to be working dogs. So we all have to be following the same guidance and rules. So what I ask of parents and children, I'm asking of staff as well. And I think those approaches are critical to the foundations of building a successful intervention where you're using a dog within school. I can't express enough gratitude for the support from Therapy Dogs Training UK and working now with Helen at the university. It's an exciting time, it's something that is well needed, and I can't wait for the next steps of the journey with both Lottie and Olive. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. That was a really interesting overview of the work that you've been doing in school. We are hoping that this is going to be a really useful resource for people internationally who are interested in bringing dogs into their classrooms. And there are a number of features and a number of things that we have built into this, but it will be constantly evolving and constantly growing. And I'm going to talk you through some of the features, but I'm also going to talk to you about why we think this is so important. You've heard from Susie and from Sally about how well they feel school dog interventions and activities can work. So in some ways, we need to think about, well, why do we need a school dog alliance? What's the purpose and why could it be so valuable? Well, I think from our perspective is that we are independent, we are non-profit organisation. We are solely here to share good practice and build a community of people who are interested in knowing more about how to do this well. But we also want to make sure that we are a go-to organisation for key stakeholders such as school leaders and policymakers, so we can share the opportunities, the news, the issues, and also talk about the challenges that different teachers may face when they're trying to implement these kinds of activities. I think also it's really important to reinforce the fact that we do have core values, and our core values, of course, we recognise the needs of the learners, but we are strongly centering our work on making sure that these are safe, compassionate, and positive relationships for everybody. So why is this so important? Well, I think part of the reason has come from our research where we talked to over 1,000 teachers who were interested in working with school dogs. And it became apparent that actually what we ask of a dog in a school is actually a lot. And we need to be thinking about this in very nuanced ways. We hear at times people talking about whether or not we should allow dogs to come into school at all, whether or not there should be such a thing as a school dog. But I think that's too broad a brushstroke to say yes or no to. What we need to think about is, what are we asking these dogs to do? And are we enabling them to have positive experiences alongside the positive experiences of the children? And our research found that actually it's a demanding thing to be a school dog. They're actually asked to work in a variety of locations that are very, very different to their home lives, different flooring, different lighting, different sounds, different smells, different experiences. And those sorts of things need to be prepared for in many ways, as you heard Susie saying. But we also need to think about dogs as individuals who also form very particular bonds and have very particular relationships. But actually, for a school dog, in any particular day, they might be expected to interact with a variety of children of a variety of ages with a variety of needs. And we need to understand that they may have preferences and that this may not be easy for them to do, just to go in and interact positively with new people. They are asked to engage in a range of activities with differing numbers of people, and some of them spend considerable periods of time in school. And all of these things are really important to think about and to consider, well, what are the implications of this? But I think for me, one of the really interesting but mostly concerning aspects of this was that some of the dogs that we spoke to teachers about were expected to participate and had no choice in when they were going to take part. And I think coming from a position where we see the dog as an individual, sentient character with needs and wants of their own and preferences of their own, this idea that there's no choice, no agency, is something that is really quite concerning. And I don't think I appreciated that when I began this journey about 12 or 13 years ago. I was a dog lover. I had dogs of my own. Here are my 3 at the moment on the screen. And I think I was of the impression that school dogs sound like a really good idea. I'm a teacher. I've got dogs. Let's see how we can make this work. And I bumped into one of my colleagues in the Alliance, just coming out of a school, just completely by chance. And she had her little dog with her. And I just thought, I want to do this. This is fantastic. But over time, I've realized that actually, just because I think it's a great idea and just because I think I can make a difference to my children's lives, this isn't always the case, that the dogs will share my enthusiasm. So my 3 dogs here on the screen live in the same house, have grown up with me, but are totally different in terms of their character and how we would enable them to work in a school context. So my oldest dog, the little poodle mixture here, now she would probably not enjoy a school context in the same way as the other 2. And so I've never taken her in. I've brought her into the university on a few occasions, but actually she came into her own during COVID, where we taught online, because actually she's very responsible, very biddable, very keen to please. And she was a great character in online lectures, because when we were learning about certain things such as behaviorism, Scarlett would join in and we could model different activities and different training tasks using her to be the model. And she loved it. She was really enthusiastic and it really engaged the students. And that online experience is possibly one way to mitigate against some of the risks that we might face with dogs in school. And one of our podcasts coming up that will be released after Christmas is about an online project that a colleague, Dr. Jill Steele in Scotland, has undertaken. So that might be of interest to some people, where perhaps bringing a real dog into school is going to be more problematic, or for schools who are perhaps just interested in seeing whether or not a dog is going to make a difference. But then I have my other 2 larger dogs, Carlo the white and Obi the black. And Carlo is probably the dog that is really a dream dog for anybody interested in these kinds of interactions, because he really is a dog who loves to spend time with different people. He's very willing to initiate interaction, and he's very willing to be extremely affectionate, even with people that he hasn't met before. And so when I bring him into the university or into schools, he's very happy to interact and do that thing that we mentioned on the previous slide, meeting lots of people during the day. I'm not saying that he forms strong relationships, but he is very positive and he gives people a real sense of connection almost immediately. So my students in the room today, when he last came in, I had to warn them not to wear black trousers, because he basically will try to get on their knee. Now, if you're a little bit anxious about dogs, he's possibly a little bit overwhelming in his shared love and affection. But he's a really interesting character to watch in those interactions. And then my final dog here, Obi, is the youngest of the group. He's just about to undergo some training to see whether he will be suitable for schools. But he's a really interesting character because he likes people, he's interested in people, but he sees his world first and foremost through his nose. So in those first few minutes in a session, he's actually not interested in the people in the room. He's much more interested in the scents and smells in the room. He can find student sandwiches in about 2 seconds. But in some ways, that can be challenging for students because it feels as if he's not very bothered to be there for the first few minutes. But it's a really interesting process to watch. And I think why am I mentioning this now is because I think this has really emphasized for me the fact that we cannot assume that a really happy, lively dog who loves people when they come to the house or who's very relaxed at home is necessarily going to work out as a perfect school dog. And actually, different dogs bring different skill sets to the equation. And it really is about thinking through who we want the dogs to be interacting and working with and forming relationships with, and who is the right dog to work with that person, and can we set up an environment that is going to facilitate that. And those sorts of messages, I think, are sometimes overlooked because the excitement of having a dog come into school can sometimes overtake the more complex and nuanced things that we need to be thinking about. We also talked to our teachers about how they knew whether the dog was okay. And it was really reassuring that so many talked about the fact they were aware of dogs' body language and they could look at the dog and they could make sure that the dog was showing signs of being comfortable and that they were enjoying and not getting overtired or anxious or uncomfortable. We also saw some people talking about consent. We've got a podcast coming up all about consent and a book review about canine consent coming after Christmas. And lots of teachers showed expertise and could talk about how they checked in with the dog to see whether they were happy to continue. But I think concerningly, there were people who blanket comment was about, oh, my dog just loves people. They're always happy to interact. I would say that Carlo, my dog, is always happy to meet new people, but there comes a point where I can see he's getting a bit tired or he's just wants to go and do something different. And he doesn't want to stay there necessarily for a long period of time. So yes, he's happy to meet new people, but he isn't always wanting to do that. There are times when he wants to do something else. We also saw teachers saying, well, I've trained my dog and my dog therefore is expected to join in. But I think that opens up some interesting questions about whether a dog who's been trained to tolerate a situation is necessarily benefiting from that in the way that we would hope to see. And then again, there were some people who just expected their dog to join in. And I think that that sense of expectation is not the way that we would want to go. We want to be privileged to be able to interact with a dog in these situations. And we need to recognize the times when the dog is telling us, actually, not today, thank you, or not at the moment. And we need to be able to respect that. So I think that's a message that we need to get across to educational professionals. And we need to think about, well, what would your plan B be in that situation? And those are the sorts of conversations that are quite tricky to have, but I'm hoping that the community that the School Dog Alliance will generate will be able to have those frank and open conversations together and find solutions and ways that people have got around that. We also felt quite concerned about some of the things we see on social media. And we see things on social media that are where schools, quite understandably, are really proud and excited of the initiatives that they're putting into place. And they want to celebrate that. And that's fantastic, except for the fact that social media has become a go-to for teachers because there isn't a standard single place that they can go to find information. They can go to different corporate organizations or different charities, but it's not always easy for a teacher to know where to look. And in each of these pictures, we can see some concerning situations that might be happening. So, for example, this adorable, fluffy dog who I can completely understand the children wanting to cuddle and fuss, is there in a situation that is actually quite uncomfortable, being picked up, hugged, squeezed, children with their faces close to him. You know, these are situations that actually cause some concern when we begin to think about what could happen if. There's another dog here who's gone to their bed, but somebody, and again, you can completely understand it, a child who's excited and really wants to interact with the dog, perhaps can't wait for that dog to come back into the classroom and goes to disturb it in its bed. Again, there are many, many canine professionals on this call, and I'm suspecting that all of you would be saying, well, that's not a safe way to interact with a dog. And then this final dog at the bottom, taken during COVID, again, a school who's really excited to have a school dog coming in. But in this situation, we can see the dog's uncomfortable, the way its body language is, the way its eyes are looking. We can see there's a tight lead there. You know, this dog has got no way out of this interaction. And again, this is not the kind of best practice that we would want to be promoting with teachers. And again, we need to have these conversations and we need to support them, understand why might this be a difficult situation and what could we do to avoid it. And then finally, our research also asked the teachers, well, what sort of events have happened that you weren't expecting when you decided to get a school dog and you thought that this would bring something fantastic into the school context? What sort of things are you seeing that you didn't expect? And, you know, of course, there were minor incidents. Dogs do occasionally have accidents, or sometimes the teacher said, well, I'm surprised they didn't want to participate in an activity. Or again, how you identify what overly enthusiastic is. But, you know, some dogs were very excited in different situations. And I think that those are probably not unexpected. Those are just unfortunate incidents that happen sometimes. But more concerning with a major instance, because I think it would take one or two of these to happen within regions or authorities, and it would be very easy for then there to become a blanket ban that doesn't respect all of the hard work that the sector has been putting in to do these initiatives properly. And, you know, these are things that happen in school. This must be terrible for everybody concerned. So we need to be thinking about ways we can work around this. And also thinking about what the impact of some of these unexpected, but actually very natural behaviours from the dog might be on pupils, and how we can work really hard to avoid these. You know, this idea of a child who's anxious about dogs being in a situation where they come into contact with the dog, but the dog isn't able to be called away easily. You know, these situations are really, really unfortunate, and I can imagine would lead to a lot of upset and stress within a school context. So what we are hoping to do, and this is an open call for people internationally to get involved, is develop a set and a repository of useful information that highlights what the best practice is in terms of having dogs in schools. So in our website content, we cover all sorts of different pieces of information. Why would you have a school dog? We know lots of people need to go to governing bodies or local authorities or your districts, perhaps, and talk about a rationale for having a dog. So we cover some of that, and we cover some of the best practice that we think should be taken on board when you're planning this. We also recognise that for teachers, reading research articles is sometimes something that they can be hard to access, they can be hard to source. So we also have regular research insights where we summarise research about dogs in schools into one-page summaries that might give you some information that's useful to you. We also review books in the field, and we produce some useful templates, risk assessment templates, and information such as that. But We also recognise that this website might be of interest to people who just love dogs. You may not have a school dog. It may not be something that you're thinking of. You may not be a teacher or an educational professional, but you may want to hear about some of the work that's going on to do with dogs internationally. So we've got a great lineup of experts coming to talk to us about all things doggy on our Pause for Thought blog resource. We also have podcasts, and again, we have people coming to talk to us about their work and share those in a way that you can listen to, maybe when you're in the gym or you're walking your dog or you're just chilling out, because we recognise that people like to engage with material in different ways. So alongside our blogs, we also have podcasts. And if these are things that you think you could contribute to, please drop us a line. We are always looking for new guests to come and write or talk to us. And finally, we recognise that not all schools can have a dog for a variety of different reasons, but we also recognise that many children find dogs really engaging. So we've been in touch with some publishers, and those publishers will work with us to make different storybooks about dogs available. And at regular intervals, we will put out a call to see if people are interested in reviewing them with their classes. And then on our Doggy Book Den reading club, we'll have children's feedback about the book and the teachers' feedback about the book. And that might just be a useful resource if you're looking at trying to engage some children with reading. We'll also have video clips of different dogs in different situations in schools. So the screenshot here shows one of the schools that we're working with and the training process that Izzy the dog went through to become qualified to go into school. So we'll be exploring some of those as well. And then our final activity for the forthcoming year that we're really excited about is celebrating those dogs who are really making a difference. And on that note, I'm going to introduce you to the co-founder and secretariat of that group, Dr. Mark Abraham, OBE. Now, Mark is an incredibly busy person. He's multi-award winning. He's not only a vet, but he's an author, a broadcaster, and I think for the School Dog Alliance, most importantly, an animal welfare campaigner. He's worked tirelessly to improve the welfare of animals, and we are absolutely delighted that he's such a supporter of the School Dog Alliance. We're really pleased to have him on board, and we're delighted that he could make time in his schedule today to join us and talk a little bit about some of the things he thinks in terms of the potential for this alliance. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
It's wonderful. I mean, I think the power of the human canine bond is just becoming more and more recognized globally, and what dogs bring to the table, which is a very refreshing from them being exploited, which is one of the main things that I deal with, from puppy farming to dog meat farms, etc. So this is a really positive movement and a real positive alliance, and I love the competition that we've just launched, or we're just about to launch, about the UK School Dog of the Year, and I really hope it gets traction. And yeah, just really proud. I do lots of school visits, mainly primary schools, and when there's a dog there, it is such a different vibe. So we do have to make sure that that situation is protected, because it won't take long if those dogs are overwhelmed and there's a dog bite or there's some incident, that this gets looked at more officially, and, as I think you've even mentioned, banned. So yeah, let's promote as much as possible this human canine bond. And it's not just the students, it's the teachers that often benefit from the dogs being present too. So all in all, it's wonderful. Very proud to be involved, and I can't thank all of you guys enough for all the phenomenal work you're doing. Obviously, from send kids to all those different situations, and using all those different dogs. And I say using in obviously the nicest way, not the exploitation way. So yeah, thank you everyone, and carry on doing what you're doing, and let's keep building the profile of responsible dog use in schools, and let's just keep building this campaign and making progress. It's very, very a real pleasure to be involved, and I'm very proud. So thank you, everybody. I'm like a broken record, but I'm genuinely love this so much, and I'm looking forward to supporting it for a long, long time, watching it grow.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. We did get to see you in the end. We managed to work the technology. So thank you. And your support has really been invaluable.
And
So,
I will just jump in and say that the next meeting, the 21st of January, we've got a meeting. It's not been advertised yet, but we're going to do one on the power of the human canine bond. So if you want to say a few words in Westminster and invite whoever wants to come, then by all means do it. We're doing it in conjunction with our special friends and the Society of Companion Animal Studies. But by all means, if you want to come and talk about the competition, then why not? Let's update Parliament about maybe how many entries have been received, or maybe read out some of the entries you have received. So the 21st of January, the invitation is there. If you want to come to Westminster, you're more than welcome to.
That's amazing. And I think that's such an opportunity for, well, everybody who gets involved with the Alliance to come and have that opportunity. So thank you. I'm absolutely sure we'll take you up on that.
Yeah, bring a few people over from Swansea and enjoy it. I mean, that's for me, for the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Dog Welfare, or APDOG. It's an amazing platform for all of us to experience Westminster. It's how I got my first touch point with Westminster was with the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Animal Welfare. The dog welfare didn't exist. I founded that with an ex-Labour MP called Rob Flello, and it was amazing how inclusive Westminster actually is. We see it on the telly, we see it on the news, and we hear about the scandals. But anyone can go, and anyone can make a difference. So I do. For me, it's still, I've still got imposter syndrome 15 years later. But my point is, I really recommend and encourage anyone who gets the opportunity to go, especially for something so meaningful and relevant as this, to take the opportunity, go to Westminster and feel part of change and feel part of the solution, because it's an incredible place, and it may inspire other campaigners or more work and then more progress. So I can't thank you all enough, and I do recommend coming to Westminster because I think you really enjoy it as well.
Amazing, thank you so much. I'm very rude, you're turning my back in all the room to talk to me because I've turned the camera on.
So rude.
So rude. But thank you so much, Mark. And I think that there are lots of plans that we have in terms of taking this forward. So I know we've had conversations about talking to teaching unions. So we have a colleague on the call who's really keen to talk to the teaching unions about this. So I think there are lots of directions that we can take as a community in order to make this experience as safe and as happy and as beneficial to everybody involved as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I will also add, sorry, you're probably sick of me now. I will also add that if you want to arrange a meeting in Westminster, not just like one of these events, but if you want to arrange a meeting like a face-to-face with someone like Rosie Duffield, who is our chair and is now independent, as we all know, because she quit Labour, and she's amazing, Rosie. Everyone loves Rosie Duffield, but if you wanted a face-to-face in Westminster meeting with some of these teaching unions or stakeholders, whoever you think would benefit the campaign by being around the table, we can facilitate that. It's easy. You just have to give us a bit of warning and some, obviously because their diaries get full up. But that is the platform that we now have access to. So if you think it would benefit, campaign would benefit for face-to-face with an MP, we could even get a few around the table if they're free. But definitely Rosie is the chair of APDOG. That would again be huge progress, and she can then use her political knowledge and experience to direct our traffic and find out what we need to do next for the best results. Because nothing worse in grassroots campaigning than wasting resources. We're all busy, we haven't got any money, but progress can be made just by going sort of traveling the right path with the right people. So I'm happy to be the puppeteer and facilitate meetings and kind of use my experience as well to make sure you make the most progress in the quickest amount of time with the least resources. If that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense, thank you. And I think actually we have lots of people on the call who are international colleagues, but I know that the
the situation from talking to teachers in different countries is very similar. There are very few policy guidelines or regulations other than initial regulations, maybe to get your dog initially assessed. So I think what happens here in the UK will be really interesting for other people, because you can then perhaps echo that more broadly.
So just finally, I mean, it's been a fantastic experience and a really great event today. We're so grateful to colleagues joining us online, joining us in person and catching up on this material after the day. You know, we do really appreciate your interest. So thank you very much. It's been a great day, and we really hope that we will get the chance to work with you in the future. Diolch yn fawr iawn.